People, we are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update. Have a look at the last 24 hours of Tottenham news. And we're going to start off with a new name. Well, should I say new name? It's an old name, but a new name to the potential transfer list. And he goes by the name of Kyle Walker-Peters, as Give Me Sports say that Tottenham could target former right-back Kyle Walker-Peters during the summer transfer window. Southampton will have a decision to make as his contract is expiring next year. However, Spurs do have a buyback clause.
I wonder how much the buyback clause is.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being that much. I think I remember it being around 20, 30 million.
Was it that
between
much?
20 and
I
30
thought it was
million.
like between 15 and 20 maybe.
Maybe. I thought it was around...
Because we sold him, well, then
30.
again, yeah, we sold him for 12, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because there was a deal with Højbjerg going the other way, but it was two separate deals. Look, I don't see it happening as much as...
You sure?
Yeah, probably. Maybe under a different manager, to be honest. I actually think he's a good player, and I actually think he's better than a Championship player. I do think he's a Premier League player, and I do think he has his uses because he's actually pretty good at right back and left back as well. He can play kind of both wings. But I kind of see him as a bit of a wing back rather than someone who can maybe do the inverted role.
He's
But
not a Champions League player, though,
I don't think he's a Champions League player. Obviously, if we were interested, it would be backup fullback to kind of play both roles. I actually do see him as a bit of a technical player. I think he's actually got quite decent close control. I think he's one of those players who's quite good at like different, like a lot better on the ball than someone like Emerson is essentially what I'm trying to say. Like he can kind of keep the ball. He's like quite good at like when you're making the pitch small, like passing and moving kind of thing. Obviously he's quick, but is he at the required level that we need, like playing Champions League football, hopefully Champions League football next season, like on a rotation basis? I do have my question marks on that. I do think he's an underrated player. I'm surprised no one came in for him when they got relegated, to be honest, because I do think he could do a job at a lot of Premier League teams. Kyle Walker-Peters.
I kind of see him of the level of like a mid-table Premier League team at best. I don't think he would go above that, like Champions League, Europa League kind of challenging team. And I think when you're looking at Kyle Walker-Peters, how old is he now?
He's 26 now.
You know what I mean?
Not the youngster that
he's not that youngster anymore. So I'd prefer, like, if we're going to go for a right back, to go for one like an up and coming young right back that can challenge Pedro Porro to that spot. Because if you're looking at the differences between Kyle Walker-Peters and Pedro Porro, there is a clear drop off there, like a clear. I want someone where the gap isn't so big.
Yeah, of course. So that's obviously the goal. I agree with you. He's probably like a mid-table Premier League player, but that's why I mean he's underrated, because I thought a Premier League team would have picked him up and they didn't.
He's had a good year in the Championship.
Yeah,
so
and
far.
he's been great. He's been great for Southampton. I think he's too good for the Championship, and I thought he was good in the Premier League for them, to be honest. So I'm surprised. But yeah, I think the only thing is it's just Daniel Levy, isn't it? He just loves it. Can he resist the temptation of a cheap deal? Come bring him back. I don't know.
I think he can resist this deal, because I think even Daniel Levy will know there's probably not going to be too much sell-on value there.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, depends how much the buyback clause is, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
no, but even if it is like, let's say 15 million,
it's not going to be 15 because we sold him for around similar price.
We sold him for 12.
But
if it's a buyback, it might be.
I reckon it's in excess of 20. I don't think it's going to be below 20 million.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it for 20. No,
exactly. So that's the Kyle Walker-Peters story. Not the greatest source in the world, so I wouldn't read too much into it. But let's talk about Pedro Neto once again. As David Ornstein said today, that Wolves want around £80 million for Pedro Neto this summer. 80 million does seem very steep for a player who hasn't played too much football over the past couple of years. We've seen what quality that he does have. Absolutely unbelievable football player. But I've mentioned it time and time again. The injury problems do worry me, especially for something like £80 million.
Yeah, I don't think we would sign him for 80. I think if they're going to be stubborn on that price, I don't think it's a goer. I don't think they will be stubborn on that price. I think that's just a negotiating tactic. Obviously, you always start with the highest price. You always try and get as much money as possible. I do think it's more of a bargaining technique to put that kind of price out there. I think at the beginning, I think maybe, like, for example, the Richarlison deal, like there was a time where Everton wanted that kind of fee and then we could bargain them down. I think 60 million would be a bit more of a realistic fee. It's still obviously a big a risk with the, as you said, the injuries and whatever, but 60 million is more realistic. I don't think anyone pushes the button on 80 million, to be honest. I think that's a bit too high. Although, Mudryk and these kind of players went for 100, but maybe even since then the landscape's changed a bit. Maybe considering how these big deals apart from like Declan Rice, these massive deals have tended to not go well, to be honest. I think, and also with FFP and everything, teams are more wary of splashing that kind of money on one player. And I know Tottenham's policy is usually not to spend that amount of money on a singular player, especially because who knows what can happen. You can sign him for big money and he can have a massive injury, and all of a sudden that money's wasted. So I don't think 80 million to go, but I also don't think if they're struggling with FFP come the summer and no one's going in for 80 million, I do see that price dropping.
Yeah, and also, like you said, it very much depends on how much teams like Arsenal and Liverpool could stretch to. You saw Arsenal spend 100 million on Declan Rice, and if they really want Pedro Neto, I'm sure that they could stretch to that much if they really wanted him.
It depends if they can sell, because I know they're not amazing position, not as good a position as us basically when it comes to FFP at the moment.
They are looking to get players out the door in the summer, so I guess it depends how that goes as well with the likes of Thomas Partey and El Neni and these kind of players. Let's talk about Pedro Porro now, as he put a video on Instagram of him doing training routines, saying that he's on his way back, and someone commented on his post saying, "How long, Porro? Not sure whether to transfer you out my FPL team." And he commented straight back saying, "Don't sell me," with a laughing emoji and a strong arm bicep emoji. We'll bring up the Instagram message in a second, but I guess does that tell you he's going to be back pretty soon?
Yeah, I hope so. Well, I think the indications were that he should. I think Andy even said in his press conference that he hopes that Porro will be back just after this game. Hopefully, this will be the only game he misses. So that'll be really great to have him back. I understand there's a lot of criticism of Emerson. I kind of feel for Emerson because he's only had one game at right back this season. So to be thrown in, especially a game against Wolves where you need to be very good on the ball to really help break them down. He's just not that. But he's been very, very rusty. So I understand why he came in for a lot of criticism. But we know how much better Pedro Porro is, especially for what we want to do and his quality on the ball. So it'd be so vital to have him back. And I think that is a good indication that Pedro believes he's going to be back anyway.
Yeah, the reality with Emerson is that he's just not suited to what we want to do here. That's the reality. As much as he's a good influence around the dressing room, he's a good character to have, he's got a good mentality about him, I think probably the best course of action is to look to sell him this summer. I really believe that.
Yep. I said that. I said that last summer.
Yeah. Let's talk about these comments from Hugo Lloris. He did an interview with Sky Sports on the eve of the MLS season. Obviously, he's signed for Los Angeles FC, and he's been talking a lot about Tottenham. And I've picked out a couple of the quotes, so let's go through them. And the first one is on the discussion he had with Daniel Levy. And he said, "I had a discussion with Daniel Levy at the end of last season. I could feel it was the end of a generation and the club needed to go in a new direction with freshness and a new and young players and with a different football approach. And it's working really well at the moment. And I'm glad for the club." And I think today, being a Spurs fan is becoming really exciting. They are playing amazing football. Ange has made a huge impact in a short time. We all want to see what the limit of this team. Success cannot be built in a few months or a year, and they are going in the right direction, especially after the last few seasons. We had some ups and downs, but we were not playing the football the fans expected, and right now the football is back, so let's see where it's going to bring the club. And then last of all, he's talking about the impact Ange has made, and he says, "Even if I wasn't involved in the last 6 months at Spurs, I was really interesting to see the Ange Postecoglou approach of football, to be part of the meetings, every training session, to understand his demands. I'm really surprised that the way he has impacted the style of football at Spurs, and he can only become better with time." So high words there from Hugo.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that even a player who's on the periphery, I know he was obviously a captain, big influence around the club, and obviously Ange didn't use him, even though he was in the squad. He didn't in the registered squad. He didn't use him at all because. We went forward on the belief that he was going to leave. It's great that he was involved in those meetings. He was able to see the impact on Ange, and that Ange was really good with him. And the fact that he speaks so highly of him, even though he literally was, not in any match day squad for 6 months, goes to show how Ange is in terms of man management and keeping people on side, and that's really, really positive. And I think he's absolutely right when it comes to we can see the football that we're trying to play under Ange, and it's much better for Spurs and the fans compared to what we were seeing beforehand. And even Hugo, being the captain of the club, can realise that. So it was obviously hard to see how he dropped off and all that kind of stuff. last season. Those mistakes crept in, but I was so happy to get that goodbye, in January. And look, hopefully he has a good time out in America.
Yeah, and he was talking about that goodbye as well, and he was saying how emotional it is, and he was saying that he's a guy that likes to keep his emotions in check, and he doesn't show much emotion, but he was welling up in that moment, and he found it really emotional, which was great to see him get that send off, because when that Shakhtar game came around, we thought we weren't ever going to see him again, and we thought he should have got a moment in that game where we should have said goodbye to the fans, and we were all kind of like upset about it, but it was good that he did come on. I think it was the Bournemouth game at halftime where he got that really good reception, really good to see and say goodbye to him. He also said in the interview that he's going to be a Spurs member for life. So I was thinking, what, are you paying that £15 One Hotspur membership fee?
Yeah, Levy ain't giving him any free tickets, that's for sure. You got to pay your membership. Get in the queue with everyone else.
Let's talk about Lucas Bergvall. As Lucas Bergvall is talking on claims that he leveraged Barca's interest in him getting a better salary from Tottenham, and he hit back at that, saying they can write in what they say about me, but I know what is right. And that's exactly right. He didn't come here for the big salary. He came here because of the way this football club is going.
Exactly. And he knows the direction we're going. He knows it's better for his career right now to be at Tottenham. I don't know if you saw as well, he was doing this, I don't know, he did some YouTube video, I think, for some Swedish account, and they were doing player comparison. Like, you'd start with a player, and then they'll do a versus, and they'll scramble for other players, and the first player they come up was Son, and he literally just kept picking Son over. Like, Mbappe came up and all these players, he just kept picking Son until one player came up, and it was Zlatan. He was like, prime Zlatan? He was like, all right, I have to go with Zlatan because he was Swedish, the Swedish one was just really funny, but he said Son better than Mbappe, so big up to Bergvall.
All right, he's fully COYS already.
Exactly.
Another point on that kind of similar topic, I don't know if you saw, but Bissouma did one of these Instagram things yesterday, when you've got a list of
random
10
football tier,
blind ranking, that was it, and Thomas Partey was the first player to come out, and he straight away put him in 10 without any questions asked. I love
no
that.
hesitation. I love
but he did put Thierry Henry in second.
All right, we'll let you off one.
And last but not least, there's some quotes from Radu Dragusin's agent, Florin Manea, and talking about the lack of game time that Radu has had so far at Tottenham. And he says, you have nothing to worry about. It's normal. After a defeat to Wolves, I hope he'll get his chance. He couldn't have knocked them all out of the team straight away. Romero is a world champion. Van de Ven is playing well. He works hard in training. It was noticed by the manager and his teammates. He's training well. He'll play enough before the Euros not to be out of rhythm, which I thought was an interesting comment, because how's he going to play enough before the Euros? I mean, there's not that much football left to be played. How are you going to knock Van de Ven and Romero out of the team?
Unless we, keep defending as we are, maybe we need to make a change for some reason. But look, maybe there's opportunities to start with a back three and completely change the formation. And maybe something needs to change, because we are very open at the moment. And maybe it's a consequence of just the dynamics of the team aren't fully gelling as injuries have been coming back and all these kind of things. So maybe with time, we're going to get back to that. Or sometimes I'm not saying we're in a massive rut, because I don't think we've been that bad, but obviously we're not our free flowing best. We all can see that we're not been playing that well for the last few weeks at least. So maybe sometimes when that's happening, just a little change of formation, a change in dynamic can just freshen things up a bit, and maybe bring Dragusin into that fold might do that, bring him to a back three, and maybe that's where he sees the game time. What's interesting is when he says they had a defeat to Wolves, so maybe he'll get his chance. So I don't know if he's kind of putting a tiny bit of pressure on Ange, saying, look, they lost, so you better put Dragusin in now, because they conceded 2 goals, and if they're not keeping clean sheets, why should the defenders keep their place? Bringing Radu. Maybe he's kind of subtly saying that.
I think it's more wishful thinking.
Yeah,
to be
probably. But I do wonder if he's kind of trying to put that out there. I hope he gets some game time. But yeah, I agree. If we're going to continue in the current formation, it's going to be very difficult, because obviously Romero being a vice captain. And also, I don't think he's playing badly. So is he ever going to take him out? No. Van de Ven is playing really well, so you're never going to take him out. So as long as we're playing 2 centre-backs, it is going to be very difficult for Dragusin to get regular game time.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I'm looking at it. And, he's come here. And just before he moved to us, we had all these injury problems and suspensions at the back. And as soon as he's come, everyone's back.
I know. I feel
bad. It is a bit unfortunate for him.
Definitely next season, we know with European football, he'll definitely be getting regular games in the Premier League as well, I reckon. But right now, with 13 games left, there's not that many games. So unless there's an injury or unless Ange wants to change formation, yeah, I expect some more bench time for him.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all these news stories that we've brought to you today. Would you like to see Kyle Walker-Peters back at the club? Let me know in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on.